What's going on, everybody? It's Form Terror Friday. It's been a second, and we keep rolling, we keep making art. It's gonna be a fucking cool interview that I'm having tonight with a friend of mine, Paul Barton. His work can be described as things like terribly haunting, cosmic horror, things to do with gods of death, pain, incredible textures. I'm really stoked. I have a lot of words that are kind of involving what he does and what it is that he, I feel like, depicts in his work. But I'll probably just kind of pepper that in as we go. So without further ado, I'm just going to have him jump on here. All right. What's up, man?
Hi.
Damn, that's one fucking creepy ass mask.
Thanks. It was like $6.
Nice. Did you do anything to that?
No.
All right. You just bought it that way? That's fun.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We're
It
getting
like
into spooky season, so.
like CVS or something.
Nice. Wow. CVS. Oh, shit.
Yeah, they're stepping up their game.
Dude, Home Depot is really stepping up their game. It's insane.
Oh yeah. I don't even have the money for that shit.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a little more expensive for sure. Well, dude, I'm really stoked to have you. I'm really excited to talk to you about your artwork, and I want to thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I imagine some people will kind of trickle in, so I figure we can just keep it real light. For whoever's gonna actually watch this later on, we can just get into who you are and where you're from and all that stuff. So you're in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, and you are. You told me that you are doing an internship as part of a graduate assistant program, right?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
It's easier to talk this way.
Yeah, for sure.
Elaborate. Well, I get a tuition waiver to be a graduate assistant, and then I'll do an internship along with it, and that's for a computer science master's degree program.
Right.
And so I started that last year.
Nice. And then you mentioned that you're also in classes.
Yeah, I take I'm a full-time grad student, and I also do this internship. So it's like a part-time internship and full-time classes.
Got you. So you're a busy dude outside of creating artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty time-consuming
for sure
stuff.
You said that your classes consist of things like names like numerical analysis and advanced scripting for data science.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah. I definitely don't understand it.
using programming languages to solve math problems.
Got you.
Basically. And then I take also regular, more computer science software and IT classes too sometimes.
Nice.
So my undergrad degree, I went back to school at age 40 because I was just doing home renovations and stuff, and I had no money, so I started school again at age 41, and I already liked math and was had been getting into programming and other stuff, and so I went back to school for it.
Gotcha.
4 or 5 years ago, got a degree in math.
Nice, man. Yeah, I feel like that's really ambitious, especially people that have gotten to an age where they decide to go back to school in their 40s or late 30s. They obviously are going to care way more and know exactly what they want out of the programs that they're attending, So I definitely respect that. It sounds like you know what you want out of it. So,
oh, believe me, there was plenty of times of indecision and
right, yeah,
wavering between figuring out exactly what classes I wanted to take and stuff like that.
Sure.
And, it just depends. It was easier for me because I didn't have any kids, and so
right.
A lot of adults have kids.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them.
Numbers are your kids.
Huh?
Numbers are your children.
Yeah. So yeah, they don't like me.
Well,
I
I
like to
feel
think.
like what's that?
So I like to think of my paintings as my children. Like I'm going to
Nice.
school for like IT stuff to like provide a better life for them.
I like that. That's an interesting way to look at it. I was definitely gonna segue from mathematics as far as your what you're studying and what your interests are and your passions in that. I feel like it does show through your work with your use of like sacred geometrical kind of forms within the textures that you use. Um, and I really like that. So I was going to just put an image on the screen and maybe we can talk about it. I think before we get really into it, I kind of like I wrote a little thing that I feel like I basically it's like just words that come to mind when I see your artwork. Um, so I'm just gonna say that while I pop this first one on the screen, which by the way is just fucking incredible. Like this piece is just so sick.
Thanks.
But yeah, so words that come to mind when I see your artwork: psychedelic, morbid, Bekshinsky textures, ghastly, Lovecraftian, sacred geometry, depictions of torturous and powerful realms, depictions of death and deities of death and pain, doomed future, magical and dark surrealism, cosmic horror, haunting worlds and dimensions of inconceivable experiences.
You should use all that for an AI prompt for like Midjourney or something. See what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure someone fucking has, man.
Yeah, probably.
That's a whole other can of worms.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I love your work. It's right up my alley, and I'm really excited to talk about it. Let's see. So I have the ability to kind of zoom in if you feel like there's something specific you want to talk about in the piece. Um, but yeah, let's talk about this first one because you call it a self-portrait.
Yeah. It was kind. I mean, it was kind of. I'm kind of just like messing around.
Yeah, totally.
But to what extent, like, to what extent am I really even a human? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I have no idea. And so that could represent some aspect of me, like somewhere.
Hell yeah. I really do notice your love of Lovecraft. I can, and like just going through your posts from like 2017, basically when you started, I just went through it. And the easiest thing for me about the research was that you are so simply putting words onto a post. Like there's no, it's very like short, like just little descriptions of things and like a lot of like puns and jokes and stuff like that peppered in. But I really do feel like there is just a fantastic world that you're creating. These realms are just I could see like hyper inspired by things like Lovecraft and dark surrealism. But I wanted to like ask you like when did you start getting into that kind of stuff and like like I guess elaborate on your inspiration toward how you go about making a painting.
You mean when did I start painting, or when did I start just getting into this stuff in general?
I guess first like getting into this stuff in general, and then definitely curious when you started painting.
Oh,
So
probably like when I was like 8, I started being obsessed with like getting into like maybe through comic books and like starting to read like fantasy stuff like Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons books.
Yeah.
And like, by like 86 and 88, I'm listening to like, I don't know, Metallica and Slayer.
Nice.
Which, escalates into like death metal.
Yeah.
And then like I'm like 10 and my dad's like, here, watch this movie, The Thing.
Hell yeah.
and like shit like that. And just gradually is um, basically a constant consumption of like horror
Hmm.
and metal and like fantasy and like I don't know. I became exposed to the um, work of different surrealist artists probably in my like teens sometime.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm looking at these album covers by like Dan Seagrave and stuff for like
Yeah.
shit that came out in the '90s or whatever, like
Yeah.
Entombed or
Hmm.
whoever. And I don't know. I just became uh, I don't know, obsessed with all that stuff. Started reading
Yeah.
Lovecraft and Clive Barker in high school,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
just it just escalated. But I mean, I was always drawing off and on, and
Hmm.
just like sketching weird stuff. But I really didn't. I didn't start painting until I was like 30. I was like older.
Right on.
I
I
don't know. I
mean,
just didn't. I wasn't super motivated to actually produce anything of tangible ever.
yeah. I mean, but that's cool. Like, I like it that there are some artists that start later on. You know what I mean? Like really feeling inspired and going after a certain thing that they're passionate about. But yeah, I can definitely see the influence from Clive Barker and Hellraiser. I can see the influence from The Thing and metal covers and like Seagrave and I guess so. Let's talk about when you did start painting, because I also want to say, like, I feel like you are like a jack of all mediums. You just overall understand the sense of anatomy, still life. You do things with sculptures. You draw sculptures, like, you do pen. You do Conti crayons. You were messing
Oh
with at
yeah.
one point, and like I just think it's really awesome that you have the ability to basically express yourself in so many different mediums and still have it look just as like creative and interesting in your like own aesthetic, like your own style.
Yeah, I was just talking about this with like one of my friends, in that like there's a lot of parallels between music and visual arts, but one of
Yeah.
the things that's like a little more unique to like
Mm,
visual arts is that like with metal and stuff. Well, like you know what I mean. You have bands like Nile and like Morbid Angel or like
yeah.
whoever that are extremely technically talented,
Yeah.
but you don't really necessarily need to be able to read music and like understand like Beethoven's music to write like a crushing death metal album, you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely.
But for visual arts, it's a little different. Like being able to draw and paint, or trying to at least draw and paint, like in a classical, like technical sense, will help you no matter what kind of art you make.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
you look at people like Dan Seagrave or like Barlow or like Paulo Girardi, who's working now.
Yeah.
Those people are all extremely technically talented. They can paint still lifes, and same with like Beksinski. Like he can paint as realistic. Frank Frazetta can paint as
Yeah.
realistic as like any Renaissance like master. And
Hmm.
like to really be able to communicate visually, you have to develop at least somewhat of like a classical technical um uh whatever. You just have to practice those skills is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
So
definitely
I mean it's
agree.
like, and now like I was like taking classes even in like life drawing, figure drawing, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I wanted to ask you about your background as far as like your learning about art and technique and all of that. Did you go to school for art at all?
Not when I was younger. I was like mostly self-taught up until about 10 years ago. I started getting frustrated with my like, because when I first started, when I started painting again at like age 30, I was using
Yeah,
acrylics for a couple of years. And
yeah.
I was just like, I hate these. And I really just did not feel like I was like communicating what I want to like effectively. And so I
Mm,
started getting into more like traditional oil painting, and I took like a couple like figure painting classes. And even at Kutztown, I took some art classes like my first year,
yeah.
and just like a painting class. And like they didn't really teach me anything. Like they didn't teach me how to paint, but it was just like a studio to use for like 6 hours a week. And then also I took more life drawing classes, and it was just good having like models and like just like an easel. Sometimes you're working in your house, you're just working in a little sketchbook. But when you take like classes, they'll force you to like stand in front of an easel and use like charcoal and use mediums and work on larger stuff that's like maybe outside of your comfort zone. And they'll set up like a model with like certain kinds of lighting and like force you to like really look closer at stuff that you might not have noticed. Like when I took like figure painting classes, my professor like started me with like casts, like statues, you know, like little statues they had laying around, and like had me just start like he's like basically like just work with like two colors, black and white, and then add a third color, black, white, and gray. And so like they have a specific way of building up to like more complicated stuff. And it's not really like, I mean, it's not really like they're teaching you every little thing, but they're kind of like giving you like the tools to like learn more technical stuff.
Right.
You know, and like same with like the anatomy classes and stuff. It's like they just by forcing you to do stuff that you're not, that you maybe like wouldn't think of trying on your own, or just like don't really feel comfortable with. That's why I think certain like art education can be effective. Certain art schools can be effective, like the Atelier type art school. Not like a lot of 4-year art schools are like, they're more interested in like what subject matter you're pursuing. But I think like Atelier type places that are focused on realism are good at like helping build those kind of skills, which you can then apply to like anything else.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, like, I really, I feel like you are very well attuned to just adhering yourself to whatever the project is and really just nailing it. Like we were talking just about statues just a second ago. I just wanted to pull this up because this is a beautiful piece, man. Like I feel like I would see that somewhere, and that's a great representation of it.
It's from Laurel Hill.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I'm obsessed with like classical like Renaissance Baroque statues and like sculpture and like making drawings and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and when we ran into each other the other day, you had some work that was a little more around that realm. What was that? What gallery was that again?
Eclipse.
Yeah, Eclipse.
That was that one that you have up. That was the one that was in there.
Okay, and then did you have other ones, or was it just this one?
It was just this one.
Nice. Okay.
They have another show coming up. I just put some stuff in, but It's not like this. It's more like gore.
Okay, sick. That's awesome. I'll definitely we can plug that later on if you want, or if you want to just let people know when that is. I'll definitely make sure to post that places and let people know.
Yeah, cool.
It's interesting. Like I'm just looking at some of these pieces that don't have that same psychedelic Beksinski like texture throughout everything, and this is actually like, you know, like it's less in an otherworld sense, but it's still like showing your textural style and also identifiable, you know, elements of nature. So it's like, it's really cool to see that texture and that style go into whatever the project is that you take on. And you nail the likenesses of things. But then the psychedelic stuff just like is just captivating. It's just so powerful. And I wanted to ask you, like, when did you start to really dive into this realm creating, I guess, for lack of a better term?
I don't know. It's like a long story.
Yeah. Well, I did notice that you put you hashtagged a few things like hallucinogenics. And I feel like that definitely has a part to play in it, right? LSD, DMT, psilocybin, these are all things that invoke like a hallucinating and can really expand your mind as far as like what you're seeing and how you're perceiving it and things like that. Is that kind of on brand with what I'm like? Am I
I would never use or endorse any illegal substances.
sure?
Nor would I be at liberty to discuss such usage if it did in fact occur.
Understood.
No, I'm just kidding. You know, I've done a lot of mushrooms and like acid, like
Right on.
drank like two bottles, like drink like 3 bottles of Robitussin. And
Yeah, I definitely saw some Robitussin hashtags.
yeah, I mean,
like,
I don't do that anymore. I mean, that was a
yeah,
long time
right.
ago, but like,
Dude, it's so sick, like how I don't know. I guess this feels like a specific sort of look to oil paintings because you can layer and like make things like translucent in a way. I have another friend that does similar work that like I feel like is really in that same realm, but like I appreciate both of your creations like equally because I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of obsessed with the way the textures are laid in and like I feel like I would never be able to do it, but it's fascinating to me and it's
you just you gotta try it.
yeah
I didn't think I'd be able to do it either when I was using acrylics because they suck. I
right
mean,
yeah
some people get fantastic results with acrylics.
mm-hmm.
I just don't. I just don't really maybe know how to use them the way some people use them. But I feel like to really get like blurry, mushy looking stuff and like layers, it's better to use like oils. Like you can make layers of transparent acrylics, but they just dry too quick for me to
Sure.
really be able to blur things together into like a weird mush, which is
So
what I
are you
require.
using like a thinner of sorts, like a terpenoid or a turpentine or something like that?
I use pretty much. I mean, I can tell you my whole thing. I use mostly Gamblin and Winsor Newton paints, and like
Okay.
for a while I was using Gamblin or sometimes Winsor Newton mediums, like Gam. What's the one? Gam. Well, I use Gamsol as a thinner. It's an odorless mineral spirit.
Okay.
And then I was using a couple of their mediums, Gamblin's mediums, and I was using a cheap Winsor Newton medium, the one that's like Galkid was the Gamblin one. I forget the name of the Winsor Newton one, but I stopped using it because it started giving me headaches. And now a lot of those give me headaches. And now I only use oil, linseed oil, and a little bit of like mineral spirits to thin my paints. I don't use any like mediums anymore, glazing mediums. I just use oil to make it transparent.
Got you. Yeah, it's fascinating just how like the kinds of textures that you're able to create with that technique. And like I can see like how it might be done, but I don't know exactly like the process it would take, like the order of what you would do. Like it just baffles me, and I'm obsessed with it. Like I love Paulo Girardi's work as well, and um, and obviously like I see the like I feel like I can definitely see your inspiration like come through in your work, and I feel like I can see some Paulo in here too, but that's like I don't know, it's just it just really like brings you into that world and makes you like really look at the textures and just nightmarish. It's fucking sick. I don't know
Thanks.
how to explain it. um but I went on your Instagram for a little bit just to kind of scroll through some stuff because there's a lot of different things that are that you're showing here. Like, for instance, this piece where these are like studies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to have you talk about that for a second.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of books on like anatomy and books on just like these ossuaries, and so like books on mummies, and
Hmm.
I just like every so often bust them out and like do drawings of them, and that'll
Nice.
help me like get shit figured out for like a paintings. Like before I'm wasting time with like oil paints, it's like get like a get like a better understanding of like the subject, and
Absolutely.
sometimes I'll go right from the drawing to the oil painting like exactly, and other times it'll just be like a sort of starting point.
Yeah.
So it depends. Like oil painting is kind of a commitment of time in the sense that like once I lay them all out and like make a palette, it's like I feel like I'm wasting them if I throw them away. So it's like I force
Sure.
myself to use them up.
Absolutely.
It'll take
Yeah.
like 6 or 8 hours, and so it's like if I don't have a 6 or 8 hour chunk of a day, then I'll just rather work on drawings for the time being.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely important to do like studies and thumbs and sketches and whatnot to understand what it is that you're going after before you like jump into a final piece. I feel like I would benefit from doing more side studies like this, where I'm just literally just looking at a reference and sketching it out. Most of the time when I'm doing stuff, figuring out like I'm just doing thumbnails and like I'm not even looking at reference. I'm just kind of getting composition figured out. You know what I mean? Like putting different shapes in and figuring out a little bit of a value situation. But I feel like you definitely grasped the fundamentals of what makes a good piece of artwork really stand out. And yeah, like we can kind of move on to from that those interesting realms that you create. I feel like you also have a good handle on architecture, and I wanted you to kind of talk about that too, because I kind of love how you like mix in that creepy element with your architectural like understandings of architecture.
Well, that one was actually not done in layers. That was just done all at once, kind of quick.
Nice.
But I had a drawing kind of ready to go. Yeah, I mean, I have like stacks of sketchbooks that are filled with just like well, lots of mistakes, but also like just architectural studies,
Mm-hmm.
sculpture studies. Like I've spent probably more time in the past like 10 years drawing than I have painting, like by
Right
far.
on.
I think my paintings would not be what they are if I didn't draw as much as I
Yeah.
did. And like I'm just like I'll like literally over the past 10 years I've ordered stacks of like books off Amazon, like art and architecture books. And
Yeah.
I'm just going through. I've gone to museums and stood there with sketchbooks, making drawings of shit in museums for like hours, like Philly Museum or
Nice.
the Metropolitan Museum. I'm just like, even if I wasn't making paintings, I would still be doing that shit. Just like studies of like random shit.
Yeah.
I'm just into it. But it makes things go faster when you do those kind of studies. After you've
Yeah.
drawn something a million times, you can just take paintbrushes and just mash it in, and it's just like doesn't even take that long sometimes.
Yeah, that's
It depends
great
on
because
it
you
depends
already
on
kind of developed the understanding of what
right.
it looks like. That's
Yeah,
I mean that's awesome.
it depends on how like meticulous you want it to be. If you're not really concerned with having it be too like meticulously perfect, then you can get
Exactly.
stuff done pretty quick if you're like
Yeah, like
familiar
this
with it.
for instance is just
A
it's just
mess.
done so well. You understand it's a cityscape, but it's being taken over by like this necrotic like flesh.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's super sick.
mold creatures.
Yeah. And I like how it's like kind of rising up. You can see like there's sort of like a hazy like fog
Yeah,
slash fucking steam or something, maybe like webbing between
yeah.
there, like fungal webbing, and that's just like I'm just
Yeah, I'm
right up
like
my alley.
hoping that that's like what most cities look like in like 15 years from now.
Yeah, right.
10.
Like I feel like there's definitely like the theme of post-apocalypse and doomed future, like I said, like definitely comes to mind when I see your work. And like you can definitely see like where I feel like where your head's at, like what how you feel like other than just what's being portrayed, I feel like you can kind of get a sense of who you are as far as like how you feel things are going in society and how things like,
What, like
are
annoyed?
gonna. What's that?
Annoyed with like this dumb civilization we built.
Yeah,
Yeah, that I painted over that one actually. That's gone. Unfortunately, that was a mistake.
interesting. What made you paint over it at the time?
Oh, it's on one of my. It was on one of my nice wooden panels, and I didn't
Gotcha,
like it, and I was just like, well, it'll be too hard to fix it. I was just like, fuck it.
gotcha. Yeah, it's really interesting just to see like the darks and the lights and just how they make a form appear, how it feels like such minimal things are going into it to make it such powerful imagery. Like, I don't know, it I like how it's not crisp. I like how it's got like this ghostly feel to it.
I really want to paint over that one.
You
That one
do?
gets on my nerves. Yeah,
Why?
I don't know. It's just
I
like
really love how like geometric everything is in here and like the symmetry within it, but still just so gnarly, and you can just see, you can feel that texture looking at it. You can understand like the bumps and the like stretched over and the caved in parts, and like, I don't know, I just love that kind of thing where you can really imagine it even if it's completely intangible.
thanks.
Yeah.
That one took like probably 30 seconds.
Right. Yeah, and it's really cool though because it like it could be like open to interpretation or whatever, but at the same time you understand that you're like essentially looking at a landscape of sorts, like a surrealist landscape. Um just because of the darks and the lights and how they get lighter as it goes past. Like you can see like where essentially daylight is over like a ridge of something there, and the darker forms in the foreground are could be anything, but it's just so ghostly and like spectral. It's super. It's I don't know. Like I said, it's
Spectral.
captivating. So, and I just really enjoy like scrolling through here and really looking at this stuff because it's just
Good.
this piece is so cool.
Yeah, where is that? I sent that to somebody.
Right on. Yeah, like portrait of a not fully materialized Demilich.
Oh yeah, from Dungeons and Dragons.
Right on. Hell yeah.
That's when a lich is like so old that they start to like a lich is basically an undead sorcerer, and when a lich gets so old that it just like its physical form just rots away to like a pile of dust,
That's
then
fucking
it
awesome.
has to like it actually has to like do like put forth some kind of effort to actually materialize again. It's
Yeah.
like a ghost of a lich, which is already an undead sorcerer. So it's kind of like a
That's
um,
awesome. I feel like I just like could be endlessly inspired by like crawling into your head and understanding like a little bit more like of this realm. Like this definitely like feels like influence from like Cannibal Corpse and Hellraiser, like to name a
yeah,
few things. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Butchered at Birth. That's like my favorite album cover,
yeah, yeah,
or one of them.
hell yeah. Was there anything specific that you made this for?
Just for kicks.
Right on.
Just like a Cenobite party. It's
Seriously,
like a
yeah,
Cenobite rave, maybe.
fantastic.
Party time.
Yeah,
Maggots.
yeah, sweet.
The
What's the story
usual.
behind this here?
Oh, that was one of my figure drawings, figure paintings from like a figure painting class, and it looked like more normal. Like a couple weeks ago, it was just like a woman standing with her hand on like a table, and I wanted to make I just wanted to make some alterations to it, like make it more interesting. Just like take.
I mean, it's like very psychedelic, and I feel like that is a really cool representation of like a hallucination. And it's really well done. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes one of my goals is to give people like, or like try to just convey like on a canvas like the idea of what it's like to be tripping without actually having to do it.
Yeah.
So
I definitely feel it. That's just incredible. And these
that
like
one
nuclear
sucks.
clouds.
Yeah, I changed that one. I changed that cloud part looks wrong. I changed it.
It's kind of interesting though because it like kind of reminds me of a mushroom too, which may not have been what you were going for, but it's definitely got fungal qualities.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make it look like alive, but
Yeah,
I had to change it to make it look more like fire because it doesn't really right now.
right on. I mean, you have another representation of
That's like
a nuclear cloud.
Yeah, no, it's all the same painting. That was like the second iteration, and now it's on the third iteration. Yeah, I painted over that.
This is fucking crazy, though. That's got so much movement, so much power to it.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah. Now
well, at least it's been documented. You scanned it, right? So it's in the it's in your archives.
Yeah.
But even in the foreground, you've still got this like really like interesting gore, like
just cancer, like
radioactive flesh, like burned and boiling.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with like nuclear like explosions for like a long time.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty fucking fascinating to look at. That's for sure.
Neat. I think that one actually made. After the Chernobyl show came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never watched it.
It's fun. Not really. It's a fucking nightmare.
It's fun in that.
It's like a horror movie for 5 hours about the Chernobyl nuclear accident.
Yeah.
That one's gone.
It's so funny. We just scroll through. Yeah, that one's gone.
Yeah, fuck it.
Burn that one.
I have like all these canvases laying around. I don't want to buy new ones, so I just paint over shit if I'm not.
Wow. This one's really powerful.
Yeah, I still have.
That's awesome. What was the inspiration behind it?
Oh, like death goddesses and just like Lovecraftian, like a Lovecraftian version.
Very sick. I love that.
Like giving birth to some like abomination.
Yeah.
Like cosmic ossuaries. Like the universe that's just like a big ossuary.
That's awesome. God damn. Yeah, I could just stare at your stuff for hours. It's ridiculous. It's kind of like sensory overload.
They're like the result of sensory overload.
Right. Yeah, I really liked this tree too. So yeah, can you talk to me about Conti? I've never really messed with that. Is that what it's called? Conti?
Yeah, it's like charcoal, but it's like slimier. I don't know how to put it. It's like feels almost like it's like a sort of like a pastel, but not powdery.
Yeah,
it's not powdery. Like I like it better than charcoal because it's not powdery.
Well, there's like oil pastels, and then there's chalk pastels. Those two things I'm familiar with. But then
Conte feels like an oil pastel, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. It's really I don't even know what the difference is, just how it's made, but they feel similar, kind of greasy. Like a greasy chalk with no powder.
Interesting. That's cool though. How big is this piece?
Oh, like I don't know, like 2 feet by like 3 maybe. So on a weird size paper. It's on a big piece of paper. It's not like a normal canvas dimension though. It's like 36 by like 28 or something.
Right on. So how do you go about what's that?
That was for school for an anatomy class.
Right on. Oh,
final like a final
we got
project.
some people interacting here. I'll just pop up on the screen.
Yeah, I know those people.
Hell yeah. So you got Rachel Sanders and Michael Spriggle.
Yeah, that's my crew.
Nice. Sweet. And CT Reflex.
I don't know who that is.
Nice. And we got the Nameless Miss. That guy.
Oh yeah,
Very
okay.
supportive.
Yeah, this is my main crew.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, guys. My main crew came out.
Nice. Jason Epstein, Gross brother.
Sick. Jason Epstein and like Chris Troxel at CT have been listening to death metal for like 3 decades with me.
Yeah. So Jason's asking, who is one of your most inspirational artists, living or dead?
Well, like Frank Frazetta.
Nice.
H.R. Geiger. Beksinski.
Yep.
Bosch.
Right on.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many good people out there.
Hell yeah. That seems aligned with your work though, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not that original at all. You know what I mean? I just like
still it doesn't matter. Like I feel like there's just a certain like aesthetic that I appreciate that I feel like other people appreciate. And I think like it's just that haunting dark surrealism, and like I feel like anyone could do dark surrealism and I'd appreciate it, but I really like the way that you execute it.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Hell yeah. So
DT is Troxel.
What does that mean?
Oh no, Chris Troxel. It was Jay's helping us figure out the identity of CT.
Got it. Right on. Sick. I'm gonna probably bounce off of this screen back to the pieces that you sent me so that we can kind of look at those
Cool.
again. I can't have like multiple shared screens at a time, so I have to just go back to.
Yeah, looking at that last one reminds me that another inspiration is like just a body horror like movies, but just the concept in general of like body horror and like think like humans being like malleable.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. That's a good way to put it. Humans being malleable. And it's always fascinating to me. Here's a good example. It's always fascinating to me when like special effects in movies, like what they go about, like how they go about doing it and what it looks like the finished product, and just like, yeah, the Thing, fucking Dead Alive, Evil Dead, like the shirt, see that? Fuck yeah. Things like that, like where it's just like really interesting, crazy, otherworldly fucking mutations and like gooey shit that's fucking like slimy and just completely alien to humanity. Just like abominations. Super fascinating.
Yeah, really cool. The Thing is like the main one, and then like Alien, and then like I don't know, Cronenberg movies like The Fly.
Yes, yeah,
shit like that.
For sure, I definitely
John Carpenter stuff. John Carpenter movies like In the Mouth of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
Like
this reminds me of Nesmith from Demolich.
Yeah.
It's got like that same color palette.
It's a good album.
Yeah, it's so incredible.
I haven't listened to that in forever.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, no, this is inspired by like, or I should say, motivated by the idea of the King in Yellow from Robert Chambers, a series of stories.
Interesting. I'm not familiar with Robert Chambers.
No, most people don't read it, but like Lovecraft mentions him, and some of his concepts were mentioned in that show True Detective. A lot of people watched it.
Interesting. I like True Detective. I feel like I think most people liked the first season and then kind of didn't. With McConaughey and
Yeah. No, that's what it's from when they're talking
Woody
about like
Harrelson.
when they're talking about the Yellow King and like Carcosa.
Yeah,
That's what they're talking about. Except the
interesting.
original story is not about like just some stupid meth cult. It's about like something
Sure,
else.
it's more than that. That's really sick, though. Let's see. Yeah, I really like that piece. What's the story behind this one? This definitely has
I
Lovecraft
really can't tell
fucking
you. I don't
realm.
know.
I mean, it's
um,
just like all of this stuff. I feel like would exist in like the the Lovecraft realm. Um,
yeah, I named this like Vampiric Oracle. I had just finished reading this book called Necroscope, which is about these weird vampires. And they're like it's sort of like Lovecraftian like vampires to some extent. And I mean, it's an interesting book, but it just made me think about like what is like what is like a vampiric like entity on like a cosmic level though.
yeah, I love that, dude. I feel like I wish Span was better for me to have like really read books, but I struggled to find the right books to stay engaged. And I feel like now at my age, I just want people to like you. I would love for you to give me like just a list of like books that you would recommend me to check out for inspiration as far as stuff that's in this kind of realm or in. I mean, like I have the Necronomicon, um, which is great because it's like it's I mean endlessly inspirational. It's like
What
there's
the
all sorts of shit you can pull
The
from
Latin
it.
version or the Greek translation? I'm just
Uh,
kidding.
yeah, I have the I have the
Just
one with the
kidding.
human skin.
Oh yeah, it's good. That's a good one.
Yeah. Um, yeah, let's talk about this piece, dude. This is fucking really fucking cool.
That's I kind of drove that up to it's a 2x3 canvas. I drove that up to Providence like 3 years ago for the for they have a horror convention, a weird fiction convention there every
Yeah,
other year called the Necronomicon.
Necronomicon.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that was in their art show, and then I kind of sort of didn't drive back up to pick it up yet, so I hope they're not like mad at me. But they didn't
for
say
real.
anything.
Like all the way up until now.
Yeah, I don't think they
How
care.
how long
They'll
ago was
just
it?
stash it like 3 years.
Jesus fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they care.
I mean, hopefully not, but you should get it back, man.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
when I submit something to the next one and drive it up, I'll get this one back.
right on. Yeah,
They're
it's
cool.
really awesome. I speaking of like events that you took part in, I have a few things that I took note that you were a part of. One being in 2018, the Phantom Narrative show at Carroll Community College that Jesse Hardesty put together.
Yeah,
And I was just like, I wanted to just touch on that. And then you also, I think that when we met was at the convent for one of the many gallery shows that they had there, um,
right.
which of course was like Jeremy Hush and Paul Romano and Brad Oman and Sophie Retris. They all lived in a fucking convent and still do, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Paul moved out with Darla, but I think they all live there still. And they made this actual convent a gallery space, and it was just such a sick place to go. It was right down the street from my place for a lot of dark artwork. There were other things, that weren't as dark. There was some lighthearted kind of stuff, but a lot of the time it was revolving around art, like passion for dark surrealism and a lot of like there's like sci-fi and fantasy stuff, all sorts of like morbid, spooky kind of stuff. and
Yeah, they had
evil shit. It
they
was
had a
cool.
solo show there for Paulo Girardi. He like flew here from like Italy.
I was there, dude.
Yeah, I wasn't. I
Was
was
that
at the
when we met?
opening. I wasn't there at the opening, the actual like main thing. I came down. I had to come down the day after it and just looked at it.
Right on. Yeah, so he ended up staying with my at the time my bassist in Bloodsport, his ex partner, she used to live like she's known Paulo for a long ass time. She used to live in Italy, so like they were friends, and that's where he stayed when he visited Philly for that show.
Okay.
So, but it was really cool to meet him. He's super nice. We had one of these when I was doing it on Instagram. We did a Form Terror Friday, and like live from his studio. It was so fucking awesome.
Oh, okay.
He was
That's
like
cool.
getting progressively more drunk, talking about his paintings, and then at one point he's just like you just hear like, and he's like, I am peeing. He's like pissing on the fucking camera, like not on the camera, but like his face is here, and he's just taking a piss while we're talking. I was like,
Was he listening? Was he listening to Manowar?
He was, dude. He was
Really?
it was either Manowar or
Yeah, he loves that shit. Manila Road.
yeah, yep. He was talking about his Manila Road piece, and yeah, he said that was his favorite piece, and he elaborated on that. And then Chris, the bassist, who he stayed with or whatever, he came through at the end of the interview, and we were fucking drinking wine, and like that was a really fucking cool little experience. I'm gonna be uploading that one on YouTube in a little bit. I just haven't had the time, but yeah, like I feel like that's where we met, was at the convent, and the funny thing is, my girlfriend was in a show with you, Steph Stevenson. She was in a show with you
And
in
Eclipse.
2018.
Oh, okay.
When you had that piece we were looking at earlier, Necronomicon Meditation. It was on display June 14th in 2019. And it had a bunch of friends of ours, Brian Mercer, Ellie Joe, Jason Barnett, Jody Chachia, Michelle Avery Konzik, Rachel Bridge, Steph Sketch. Yeah, it looked like a good one. I think I missed that one, but
was that at the convent?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I went to the opening.
Word.
They still have that. I left that there too. I'm like the worst. Yeah, I just drive shit around the East Coast and like leave it there.
It's all good, dude. I mean, you should get those back.
Yeah,
you should get those back for sure. I'm sure it's safe and sound at the convent though.
Yeah, that's only an hour away. Yeah, no, they have it. Like, I just don't want to drive to Providence. That shit is like 6 hours away.
Yeah, that's definitely a different thing. I'm gonna be in Providence in December. I'm gonna be in Rhode Island in December, playing a tour with Bloodsport. But so it's okay. So it's 8:00, and I'm seeing. There's another question. Did you ever consider doing your own version of Bosch's triptych? Someone did it for Autopsy's Acts of the Unspeakable.
Yeah, I know the one for Autopsy's Acts of the Unspeakable is like the best album art ever made. Like, like weird creatures like raping each other in a fucking nightmare world.
Yeah.
Like, amazing.
You should do one though. That's fucking awesome. That's a great idea. I would love.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would do a triptych. It's just I got to get 3 canvases that are all like the same size and like planned it out,
and that aren't fucking already paintings.
Yeah. New ones. I got to get like 3 new ones.
Yeah, go buy some fucking just for that project. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I will at some point. That's something I actually would want to like plan out though, and not just wing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or else I'll just be going over it and over it and over it and over it.
Right. Rachel Sanders says everyone should read The King in Yellow and check out Chambers' artwork.
Oh, so they can
Hell
all
yeah.
lose their fucking minds. Oh, I never even saw Chambers' artwork. I didn't know he made any.
Interesting.
It's
Yeah,
cool.
well, okay. I'm going to have to write that down because I'm always looking for inspiration.
It's fun.
Jason says, I'll pose for you if you need inspiration.
You got it, buddy.
Hell yeah. He
No
just said
clothes.
he just sends you a picture of his nuts. Is this good?
Perfect.
Put some eyeballs on it and call it a day.
The entire triptych is just that.
It's just a nut sack.
Giant close up.
Nut sack world.
Yeah.
Fucking A. Nut sack with eyes. Equally terrifying. So let's see. We've got plenty of other pieces that we can talk about because I could have you. I mean, everything is just so fucking cool to look at. So we're gonna move on from this one.
Yeah, so that one's obviously like Lovecraft inspired, which is why I submitted it to that event.
Yeah, the Necronomicon.
Yeah.
Sick. This piece is fucking fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah. Can you talk about it a little bit?
I mean, that's like just me kind of being a Beksinski wannabe, and like I had this like canvas laying around that already had a painting under it, and I was like, I'm just gonna go over this with like the most like disgusting shit I can.
It's rad though. I mean, I see the Beksinski, like I said, I see it all in your work, but it doesn't matter. Like it's new. It's a new thing. You know what I mean? It's like a new nod. You know what I mean?
Yeah, cool.
So
yeah, I'm obsessed with like nature shapes, trying to incorporate like wood and tree branch shapes, like guts.
yeah,
Like I'm obsessed with like branching patterns.
Me too,
and,
man.
Like just like mold.
Yes, I really feel like I want to get better at it though. Depicting it, the light and shadow is so important to be able to nail it. And I've never really like, I've always just drawn straight lines of things and not actually like hinted at textures the way that it's supposed to be done to like actually have that, like to actually accomplish that more.
It's hard with ink.
Yeah,
I don't use pen and ink. What do you use? Pen? You use like
I do.
black and white,
I use ink.
Yeah, I can't do that shit.
It's hard,
man. You should look at classic like fantasy illustrators like Virgil Findlay and like Frank Frazetta and like Bernie Wrightston and like study people like that. Then because they accomplish textures like that with just pen and ink. I don't know how.
All three of those artists I'm very familiar with. I have several books with Virgil Findlay. I feel like I don't do one fucking interview without talking about Virgil Findlay.
Oh yeah, no, I love that shit. My dad was a big my dad is a big science fiction fan, and he has like a whole room full of like old sci-fi books. But he has a couple of like sci-fi art books that I like didn't even know were there until like a couple of years ago. And I pull them off the shelves, and there's all these like sick like. My dad's kind of a hoarder, so I kind of don't even like look through all the shit sometimes. But like it's like disorganized. But I'm like I see all these like science fiction big art coffee table books on his shelves, and I grab them, and it's like all this like sick old school shit.
Dude,
but, like a bunch of ones, the whole section with like Virgil Findlay in the one.
Hell yeah. I mean, like, yeah, he was working with H.P. Lovecraft at one point. That's just like, just to be able to depict his stories in that time.
Yeah.
And, like, he was just so ahead of his time. And like the amount of detail that went into his work and just how smart he was with light and shadow and like how interesting he was able to make everything just so fucking eye-popping.
Yeah.
So cool. But yeah, and then Wrightson, I'm like a late bloomer too, honestly.
Yeah. I was going to say like he's probably the best.
Yeah, no, he definitely is a great source of reference for getting that down. And like, you know, like Riddick really fucking understands it with like more stark techniques, like as far as like laying down black instead of like hinting at shadow as much. He's really good at just being stark black and white.
I'm not familiar with it with Riddick. I don't think.
You should definitely check out Mark Riddick, man. He
Mark Riddick. I think that is familiar. That name is familiar.
Yeah. I mean, he's a pretty household name when it comes to like death metal fans and shit like that. He's done a lot of shit for gnarly extreme music. But like his grasp of depicting like flesh over rib cages and like dripping flesh off of skulls and shit like that.
Now I know who you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like he just really understands how to depict that without having a lot of value. Like
yeah.
It's really stark black and white, and I love it.
But now that I think about his stuff, I can guarantee you he was influenced by Bernie Wrightson.
Absolutely, yeah. We talked about it too. We've done a 2-part series with on Instagram, and we plan to do more in the future. So
yeah, because Wrightson is a master of like showing like a disgusting fucking zombie with like flesh like falling off him in some cemetery.
Yeah, and there's he's definitely like I feel like a point of interest in every interview I talk to a person about their inspiration, and Wrightson is mentioned. So definitely on point. Definitely look to him for inspiration as well. But yeah, like I love like for instance like this kind of thing. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
I just love that detail where it's like going over the one texture to make that other texture, and you can understand what that is. That's like stringing veins going across other like larger crevices, and it's just I just fucking love that shit. I don't know. I'm just such a sucker for texture like this.
That's like the advantage of painting because you can go over stuff in layers. Like I wouldn't even know how to accomplish that in like ink because you got to plan like 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead.
Yeah, that's the hard.
Like, that's why I don't do it. That's why I'd rather paint because you can kind of like you don't have to plan as far ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's nice is they have white pens that work really well I use, and then I'm able to go back on top with black.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just can't accomplish it if you don't do it right the first time.
Yeah. You ruin it. And the same with like drawing with like Conte crayon and charcoal and shit too. Like you can go over it with white highlights, but if you don't leave that space empty, it's like if you try to go over something that already has too much like crayon or charcoal on it, with white highlight, it like won't work. And so you kind of have to know what you're going to do ahead of time. There's not really a lot of room for like spontaneity. That's why I think like painting is a little easier in that sense because you can just wait for something to dry and completely go over it.
It's funny. It's like all of the things that are involved with painting, or I should say lack thereof, like the less like commitment you have to have as far as like a mindset when it comes to painting, it doesn't make as much sense to me that I would adhere myself to pen and ink over painting. Like I feel like I feel like painting is essentially the double base of what like of yesteryear for me. Like I used to shy away from trying anything double bass. I was like I grew up listening to punk, and then I transitioned and listened to like heavier shit, metal, and then like doom, and that was just like all single kick stuff. And then I was like just pushing away really wanting to know more about like other music that had double bass, like because I didn't want to feel like I couldn't play it. And then eventually I was like really turned on to certain death metal, certain aspects of like more extreme shit, even like old school like power metal and like Maiden and fucking Judas Priest, and having like and Death having like double bass. And I was like, I gotta fucking learn this shit. Like black metal has double bass that I really like, and like more medium pace kind of stuff sometimes like I really loved. And I finally like pressed myself to learn it, and now like I can't imagine playing music without it. You know what I mean? And I feel like I should apply that same mentality to painting, like especially like oil painting in this sense, because I feel like I would take to it well if I really dove in and tried. But you know what I mean? Like
yeah, I mean, I think even when before I got started, I had a picture in my mind that was like harder than it actually is. Whereas when I started doing it, I tended to find like acrylics harder. Yes,
Yeah.
it's easier. It's also with oil paints. What a lot of people do is they get overwhelmed in the beginning by
Hmm.
like they're like, oh, I gotta buy like 16 different colors and
Yeah.
like buy all these different mediums, and it's like all you really need is like get started with black and white and mix up
Hmm.
grays, and like don't even worry about mediums, or like and just use a little bit of like paint thinner, and like that's really all you need. Like it's to get started. And I would just say start with black and white and gray stuff, and like just take the stuff you're used to doing in pen and ink and try to do it in with oil painting, and then
Okay.
see how it feels, and like you'll like gradually get your own like workflow and your own like style of doing it. Like
Okay.
like I said, I don't like planning. I don't like how far ahead you have to plan with pen and ink and drawing.
Yeah.
And so like I do it for fun and just for like studies, but to make a finished product with that stuff is just like I'm just really not that interested.
I got
With
you.
painting,
I mean,
with
it's
painting,
definitely
I
a labor of love, and if you don't love it, then yeah. I mean, I
like I
get
said,
it.
it's just not as fun for me to like have to plan that meticulously. With oil painting, I can just
Yeah,
kind of
I don't know. I really do feel like
mush.
I would enjoy
You just
painting.
mush. It's just layers of mush on top of other bullshit layers of fucking mush. Like it gives it, you know what I mean? You can totally go over shit without ruining it, unless you have like too thick layers and it like makes it look like chunky or something. But if you use relatively thin layers of paint, you can just go over it like indefinitely. Whereas I feel like once you put too much ink down, or like I was saying, once you put too much like charcoal down, it's like you've ruined that piece of paper basically.
Yeah, essentially, you've ruined the texture you're going for.
Yeah,
Like like I said, there are ways to white out the black that you don't want, but then it's never gonna be the same as what you started with, just the raw piece of
yeah,
paper.
yeah. And
So
same like watercolor too. Watercolor, you have to leave space for white sometimes. And it's just like unless
oh,
you're using,
absolutely. That's like grasping that in and of itself is quite a feat for me. Like thinking in that sense of like, okay, what's gonna stay white? I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want anything to stay white. I want everything to be gritty and dirty and crazy. And then like, and then I'm like, damn it, it seems too muddy. And then I have to go back in and fucking whiten things out, and
I
it's
like
hard.
I just like try to avoid too much like planning because it
Yeah.
never works out.
I definitely don't plan that often. I have like certain things I plan, certain things I get, figured out compositionally. But then when I'm in the thick of it with ink, it's kind of just do or die and figure it out as I go and
Yeah,
whatnot. But
yeah.
yeah,
Like
but
even like pen and ink always. I like just taking like ballpoint pens and making like quick sketches with them.
yeah,
But like doing like serious like illustration of like stippling and something that has to look professional, it's not for me.
gotcha. Yeah, where to each their own. I for sure understand. Like, yeah, I really do. I think though feel like I should push myself to get into painting. I guess like if you're able to paint light things on dark surfaces and it still shows up opaque and not like muddy,
Yeah,
that's
well,
like what I'm afraid of is like getting too muddy with things and not being patient enough for things to dry before I want to put stuff on top.
that's one of the issues. You might have to like do a layer and say call it quits and then wait like a day or two.
That's insanely hard for me to do. Depending. It depends on
Well,
what I'm
then
trying to accomplish with the piece.
acrylics might even be better for you then if you don't have that patience. Depends on what kind of effect you're like
Yeah,
what
I
going
feel like
for.
even acrylics, like I don't know. I guess the thing that I like the most about using pens is how fast it dries. Um, to the point where I can just have a piece of paper under my hand just to make sure I'm not smearing anything in
Yeah,
case. But I'm still able to work into something and know that it's going to be dry enough to come back to like within minutes. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Acrylics are like I mean, a lot of acrylics that you buy are relatively like cheap compared to like the oil paints you buy in terms of
Mm,
like you have to really buy the most expensive ones if you want them to really be opaque. Whereas oil, you have like more pigment packed in the paints, like just out of the tube. Even the cheaper ones depend. I mean, it depends on the pigment. It depends on the brand.
Right.
But like you would have to. That's something you would have to like. If you were to start painting with oils, you would have to figure out which colors are opaque. Certain pigments are opaque and other ones are not. There's more of like a real. There's like more of a traditional. With oil paints, there's more of an actual traditional correspondence between the color and like the traditional pigment type. Whereas like acrylics will just be like whatever red, with oil paints. If you get the expensive ones, it'll actually be like, if it's called cadmium red, it's because it has cadmium in it. If it's called cobalt blue, it's because it has cobalt in it.
Yeah,
So
like
some of those more expensive ones are very opaque. Titanium white is opaque, and like certain blacks are opaque and some aren't. Like you kind of just get a feel for it.
Gotcha.
But like if you wanted to put white over like black and have it be like opaque, you'd have a better chance with oils than you would with acrylics. But you would have. It depends. Like you can put like a layer of black down with oils, and if it's like thin, you can actually take a big gob of white paint and mash it on it, and it'll be white. You know what I mean? It just depends on how you do it. You just have to mess around.
Okay, I might do that. I might just fuck with that. Just lay a thin layer on of like a dark background, and then just kind of go in with some lighter stuff.
Let me tell you what you do. You go and you buy like a big tube of white and a big tube of black, and you mix up a neutral gray, and then you paint that over the surface, right?
Paint the neutral gray over the surface?
Don't even do that. Take a tube of acrylic paint that's gray. Just buy a tube of gray acrylic paint and paint on canvas all gray. And then wait for that to dry. It'll take like an hour. And then have a tube of black and a tube of white oil paint. And then just go over the acrylic paint with it. I use acrylic for underpainting, for priming canvases all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, I'll send you like an instruction set for getting started if you want. Like
hell yeah, I would love that, man.
Yeah, it's like you can use. I use acrylic as like a sort of gesso. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a primer. But I'll color it. I'll make it a tint. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I'll go over it with like whatever.
Sweet. Yeah, I would love that. Because it is daunting. It's intimidating. I tried to do something with oil like, I don't know, half a year to a year ago, and I was just like trying it on like a piece of like greenish like tinted poplar wood, and didn't put a background layer down, just went into it with like this mutant green, and then I just like didn't know what to do with it. And I left it at the person's house that I was working on it with. I was just like, I don't want it to like get anywhere. Like, I feel like oil's really messy for me too. So, but I definitely would appreciate like a little instruction set so that I can mess with it and progress as I explore and experiment and stuff like that.
Yeah. I know this sound like contradictory, considering I said I'm not really into like excessive planning, but sometimes if I'm doing like a study of something for architecture, I'll make a gray acrylic background on a canvas, and I'll literally just take a pencil and draw something on the canvas with pencil, and then I'll just color it in like it's a coloring book. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll have like the black and white. This is more for studies. Like
you'll like block it out a little bit.
Yeah, something like you're showing now. Obviously not. I'm not doing something like that. But like for like that house, that gray, that black and white haunted house, shit like that, like black and white simple studies, and that gives me like a sort of feeling for how to apply the paint in more complicated patterns.
Yeah.
But that's a good way to get started, is by literally just draw the shit you would normally draw. Just draw it on a canvas with a gray background, and then just paint it in.
Okay. Well, let's pivot real quick. I want to talk about this piece because it's like fucking really symmetrical. Did you have a sketch down before you got into this? Because I feel like you would have had to like fold a piece of paper to like get a like a guideline down to make this that symmetrical.
No, I mean I got pretty good at just winging it. Sometimes like I'll use paint. Well, sometimes I'll take a ruler and just measure like, all right, 16 inches from the bottom, and then
Right.
I'll make a little dot of paint on either side. You know what I mean? But I
Fuck
won't
yeah.
do I won't necessarily do a grid. Occasionally, I've done a grid, like I was just saying about like drawing on a canvas with a pencil. Occasionally, I've done a grid, but they usually don't make it through. It's like that grid usually is gone by like the later stages of the painting anyway.
Right.
So, like, I don't think I had a grid for this one, but I will take sometimes a ruler or just like a straight edge and like sort of just mark off little sections and put a little dot there to keep track of where I am. And then aside
Yeah.
from that, I can just wing it. Because a lot of times it's not like this is close, but they're not like perfectly symmetrical. They're just like kind of like just like a balance, but it's not like a perfect symmetry.
Right.
If you were like look
No,
close
I
and
know
then
it's not
measure.
perfect symmetry, but it's really well executed to a point where it's got symmetrical qualities to where you understand that this is a life form that like has features about it that are symmetrical and
Yeah,
like, and then on top of that, dude, this piece is like so fucking intense because on the outside it's like super slimy, like the depiction of like shiny, slimy intestine worm like texture. Like I feel like I can understand all of the textures that you went for and what it would feel like to run my hand on each part of it. And that's like I feel like in the center it would be like kind of like you could push into it. You know what I mean? On the tops it would feel
yeah,
like kind of like like a horn or like some sort of like really tough um like um inside of like a fucking, I don't know, not an exoskeleton, but I
yeah. I
understand
know,
by looking at this like what these textures would feel like, and
like
it's just so
slimy
fucking
insect parts.
yeah, yeah. But there's also like reptilian like things here, and there's and
Yeah,
all
the
of these
eyes.
different eyes that you're like. So
Did I?
are these like eyes that you're using from direct reference? Or are you
That's an old
making them
photo.
up from just looking at references of different animals' eyes?
Oh yeah, no, it's just like from looking at animals' eyes, and
But
then
you're
kind of just
fucking
like
like
kind of winging it.
nailing it. Like they are so well read as eyes, and yet they're like you've created your own creature's eyeballs in the same way that real animals' eyeballs are, and that's like it's like different shapes and different things like that.
That's the
It's
plan.
super fucking cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not just me. There's tons of other people doing like sick, like Lovecraftian, like blob creatures.
Trust me,
There's a
man.
lot
I
of
know. I do know.
there's a lot of really good illustrators out there.
There really are, but I'm talking to you, and I'm talking about your
Hey,
work.
thanks.
Hell yeah. I love these really kind of like nondescript, but like you get the idea landscapes. Like I feel like you're kind of amongst like an overgrown, gnarly, almost completely enclosed not completely enclosed, but like ensnared in like,
Yeah,
you know,
like
growth.
claustrophobic.
There's like a cemetery, like headstones, kind of looking in the background
Yeah,
or in the midground,
yeah, your
and then
standard
there's
stuff like a cemetery and a mutant forest and some blobs.
it's fucking cool, man. I don't know, like it's not something that I like think about, and I feel like it's probably it's a great deal to do with all of the things that you've taken in as you've lived your life, all of the stories and the books you've read and things like that. And I feel like my mind is like corrupted by all the TV I watched. like movies are cool and everything, but it's like cinematography moves and it like shows you already a depiction of something, so it's like that's in your head that way, so it doesn't give you the chance to be creative with just reading words, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we were. I think a couple when I saw you at Eclipse the last time, we were talking about that movie Annihilation. Like
Yes.
that I'm
Yes.
kind of into. I mean, I'm really into that. But I was going to recommend that as a book you should read. The Annihilation book. It's like a quick read. But what I like from that is the idea of like when nature just like stops making sense.
I really love that.
And so like that's kind of like, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm directly inspired by it because that's kind of like was the theme like the whole time. But that movie and like that book really sort of embody that idea. And that dude's influenced by like Lovecraft and some other people.
Who's the author again?
The author of the book, Jeff Vandermeer.
Okay.
And then the movie is like based on the book, and it's close. I mean, it's a general idea. You have Area X where nature is just nonsense, but then like the some different like the events in the book are slightly different, even a little weirder, I'd say. There's a lot of it's a pretty psychedelic book and movie.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I really enjoyed that movie. It really inspired me to push myself in the realm of the art that I'm doing now. And the one piece, I'm actually going to be like selling it at the market we were just talking about. I named it Annihilation. So it's definitely nature not making sense, mutations, things growing out of places, abominations of, I love that. I'm obsessed with that kind of thing. And then adding fungal entities and like things like that. I feel like I just want to expound on that for the rest of my days, and that's enough.
Yeah.
But like, I never feel satisfied. Like I feel like I've never gotten to a point where I'm like, I have a body of work about this yet. Like I still like feel like there's so much to do.
Yeah, because there's like so much stuff in nature that you can like twist and mutate.
Yes. It's exciting but overwhelming.
Yeah.
So there's a question by Jason, says, this is disgusting. Do you rough sketch your ideas on paper or just go right into it with oil paint? And I think we kind of touched on that, but
like both.
Yeah.
It depends.
Right.
Like sometimes it'll be some sketches will be of some like shapes, and then those shapes will end up in the painting. But I don't plan paintings really.
Right.
You know, I just kind of like, I work on components and like textures, drawings of textures and individual, like I might practice drawing some buildings, and then the overall shape will end up in a painting, but not exactly how it was in the drawing. Kind of just like a loose, I'll use the drawings as like a loose guide.
Yes.
But without my drawings, I wouldn't have been able to make a lot of these paintings, because that's like my drawings are really where I like kind of worked out a lot of these like ideas. Like how to like really make like blobs and like human anatomy and shit like that.
Yeah. Fucking awesome, man. Truly inspiring and just so fun to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I'm glad you like my weird paintings.
That I do. It is getting close to 8:30. I know that you said that you had to be done at 8:30.
Yeah, I gotta leave in a little bit.
That's okay. So does anyone else have any questions for Paul? Let us know while we're talking here for the last little bit that we have.
Yes, I'm an open book.
Yes, open that book. I feel like I could probably jump back to your Instagram.
Half the people on this list have heard me talking shit for like the last like 2 decades, so they don't even have to ask me anything.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm sure there's some people that have questions about things, and this is truly a hellish image right here. That's some fucking eternal damnation shit.
Yeah, I think that was like. I think I like started working on that after I watched a movie called Event Horizon, which I had seen a million
Dude,
times.
I love Event Horizon.
Yeah, but one time I was watching, I was like, "Why am I not painting Event Horizon shit?"
Yeah,
So
it's
I started that one.
definitely like, and it's just like flashes of shit, which is like funny because like there's really not that much of the movie that shows like crazy body horror, crazy horror stuff. It's just only in that one section, and it's just like so vile. Like,
Yeah, it's good.
It's so sick, though. I love that. Just imagining your worst fears and your worst nightmares. I'm just scrolling through your Instagram. Don't mind me.
It's fine. Bunch of nonsense.
I like this blob with like skulls coming in.
Yeah, it's just like that's like a small like piece of canvas paper.
Nice. That's sick, though. It's kind of like a little bit of a slime mold kind of feel.
Slime mold, dude.
Yeah. This is cool. So, like, I noticed that you also, like, you talked about magical realism. What is magical realism?
Yeah, I don't even know what that means. That's like a genre of like art, I think, where people, it's kind of like fantasy art, but they want to be like, they don't want to admit being surrealists. So I have no idea why it became like a separate thing.
So
I don't know what
it's like everyone that illustrates for Magic the Gathering.
No. That's more like fantasy art. Like,
right.
Yeah, no, magical realism is like, I guess the official surrealist movement is considering as having been like a sort of confined to certain people. And so other people have started doing stuff like that, started calling themselves magical realists. I don't even know why I used that for a tag. I was just maybe like,
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what I'm doing or not.
Right. You talked about animism too. You hashtagged a lot of things with animism, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah, like the idea that all of nature is just like kind of sentient.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking cool. I like that. I adhere to that. I like this sketch. This is really interesting. Like combining.
That's a statue somewhere. It's in a statue in like a cemetery or somewhere, I think.
Oh, you know what? At first glance, before I saw the faint lines here, I thought that this was just like an amalgamation of like parts of a body, like
no, it's like the Grim Reaper. It's like the Grim Reaper taking somebody. It's like part of like a tomb.
Sick.
I think a monument of some kind.
That's awesome. I love that. So yeah, you were talking about the cemetery a little earlier because I was mentioning that I'm going to be at Mount Moriah for the Darksome Every Day is Halloween event, the art market. And you mentioned that you enjoyed visiting Mount Moriah. Sounds like Laurel Hill as well. You go there for inspiration?
I wouldn't really call it inspiration. I just like being in places like that.
Nice. It's definitely like there's like a somber, it's quiet and peaceful, but it's also got some interesting, like morbid, like the statues are very interesting to look at.
Yeah, I just like the vibe.
Yeah. That's cool. I definitely have jumped the fence and gone there at night. It's been just like a spooky walk around, you know.
There's a fence now. You know, I think when I went
there,
it's
like a gate. It's like a large gate.
When I was there, when I used to go there, it was like open. Like nobody cared about that place.
Where is this one?
Bethlehem.
Okay.
Or Easton, one of those two. Up here in the LV in the Lehigh Valley.
So did you take a photo and then use that to make this painting?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Nice.
That painting looks kind of like shit.
Well, it's a depiction of being in a cemetery. I can tell that.
Yeah, I'm gonna paint over it.
So, Jason said, "Are you inspired by any artists that have never done horror stuff?"
Oh yeah, like tons of them. Like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with all like classical and like
Mm-hmm.
Renaissance Baroque art, like Rembrandt, and like some of them sometimes they do a little something that is kind of scary. Like Goya
Yeah,
has some scary stuff, but
absolutely.
like Rembrandt, uh,
Dur.
Venetians, like Tintoretto and like Titian and like
Mm-hmm.
people like that. Yeah, I love all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I like look at a lot of like, or I've made countless drawings from Renaissance and Baroque painters and
Yeah.
Renaissance and Baroque sculptors. It's helped me
Nice.
like kind of helped me learn about certain learn about how to render like certain shapes better,
Yeah.
certain structures.
Nice, man. Well, that's great. I feel like you really do have a grasp on art in general and how to go about creating a piece, and really nailing the light and the shadow, understanding the highlights and the deep, you know, the dark parts of an image to really make it identifiable, even if it's not of this world.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing that kind of helped with that is um, like there are. I mean, being a self-taught artist is. I mean, there's a lot of amazing self-taught artists, but I think a lot of them are very disciplined. And
Mm-hmm.
like I would never force myself to like sit and paint like a still life if I wasn't in like a class. You know what I mean? That's why I like taking classes because they force me to like do boring shit like paint like a bottle sitting on a table. And you
Sure.
underestimate how much you can really learn about light and shadow and highlights and
Oh
textures and
yeah.
surfaces from painting boring shit.
Yes. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's just part of getting better at that kind of thing. And I definitely, yeah, it is boring in that sense. You have to kind of like um, get excited about what can the possibilities from what you're learning
Get
about
excited
a
about like
fucking
a
boring ass still
yeah.
life,
Get
like what
excited
you
about
can
like a
do.
toaster.
Yeah, like how you can apply it to like work that you do feel passionate about, shit
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But
Because if you can paint like a toaster, you can paint like a piece of shiny armor, like a helmet.
sure, yeah, that's a great example for sure. I like that. I mean, yeah, I should really like
Paint some
do more
toasters.
studies of like textures that I want to accomplish. Things like bubbling and slimy and things like that, because it, it is like you said. I feel like it's quite a feat to accomplish that with pen and ink, um, because everything has to be planned. But
Yeah, the highlights, just having just the whole like highlight system. I think it's easier to do with paint. I mean, I wait till either something's dry or like it's a thin layer, and I just take a glob of white and put it where it has to be. But like, it's harder when you're doing it with ink
so
to get
you
highlights in.
really do you wait for highlights right till the end?
For the most part,
Yeah.
you know, then like sometimes I paint back over them with like some kind of color. I'll glaze a color over them, and then I'll go back.
Right.
It just depends. Like I keep changing shit.
Yeah. Well, right on, man. I really appreciate your time, and your willingness to be a part of this and talk about art, talk about your process and where you get your inspiration. And this shit's just like so cool to me. So I mean, I hope other people will find it just as cool. Um, yeah, thank you so
Cool.
much. And I feel like we're at a point where we can call it. Is there any questions that you have for me before you go?
Not right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you some instructions for some to get started with like a basic oil painting setup if you want.
I would really appreciate
Yeah.
that. Hell yeah. It would be cool to like maybe sometime in the future we could actually be like in the same room, and maybe you could show me a few things while
Like a tutorial.
while I'm fucking everything up.
Like a live tutorial. We could do a Zoom tutorial.
That could be cool. You know, it'd be kind of cool is if we did it on here.
Oh, right.
That could be cool. I think
I don't know. Painting for me, actually working in front of an audience. See, I'd have to put my like. Actually, yeah, the Zoom thing might not even work. So I'd have to put my like canvas and stuff kind of where my computer monitor can see it, because my camera is built into my monitor.
You could do it on your phone with like a phone.
Oh,
thing.
right.
Like I have this like phone holder thing that you can like angle down and like do like videos while you're working, and then there's also a light that's attached to it. So, but the funny thing is, like, I use this stupid thing a lot more. It's just like a dumb phone stand.
Oh, right.
A lot of like of the time lapse videos that I do are just like my phone's on there.
Oh, right.
Just enough room for it not to be like hit by my elbow.
Yeah.
But it's still like kind of on an angle.
Yeah, I like refuse to do stuff like that. Like videos of me like doing time lapse paintings and like pouring like varnish on shit. I hate that. Like it's cool. Other people do cool ones, but like I don't want to do it.
That's like okay, man.
I'm like a social media minimalist. Like you notice that I don't really like talk a lot on like any of my posts because it's like it's impossible for me to take it seriously.
I mean, that's all good though, because what's really important is like the production and like what you're making that makes it like you can see that you're very passionate about it, and it doesn't matter. You're not thinking about the algorithm. You're not thinking about the validation. You're not thinking about any of that. You're just like, here's what I made. I like it. Right. Like I did this. I like created this, but like, you're not asking people to like praise it or whatnot, but I fucking think it's incredible.
Yeah, I don't require any validation whatsoever.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I guess I'm a little different just because like I am trying to also run a business. So it's I'm passionate and I'm turning that passion into a business. But I've definitely like become more like humble about things when it comes to like looking for validation and stuff like that. I think over the years you just like realize like what's important, and the most important thing is like if you're enjoying what you're doing over like what people think of it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fine line between like getting like reaching an audience that can help you support a business, but then also being like obsessed over like validation, which is like
there's definitely a balancing act that you need to make sure you're not like getting sucked into
caring about it too much.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, I'm not gonna take up more of your time. I really do appreciate you sitting down and letting me, find out what's going on in your head and getting to know you a little bit better, man.
Sure. Yeah, it was fun.
Hell yeah.
Be on the lookout for your instruction kit.
I will, dude. Thank you.
Are we done? Are we done here?
Are we done? Can I fucking go?
Right.
Yeah. We can wrap up. And I'll just remove your image from the screen here. So thank you very much, dude. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate the interview.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And I hope you have a good rest of your night, and I'll be in touch.
Oh, yeah.
We'll figure something out, all right?
Just you said we were going to mention it before. The Eclipse is having another thing this year.
That's
right. The opening that's in the Eclipse Gallery in Lansdale, PA, and that's the opening is next Friday, September 29th. So I might be at the opening, I might not. We'll see. Probably.
All right. Well, I'll coordinate with you because I might want to go to that.
Okay.
And are there any other artists that that I might know?
I don't know, but I saw when I was dropping my shit off, I saw a lot of pretty cool stuff. There was a lot of
that's awesome. What's the theme of it?
Halloween stuff, ghouls, murder. I don't know.
Damn, man,
Whatever.
I wish I had gotten the memo. I actually talked to Eclipse curator too, but that was a long time ago. So
Yeah, no, I just happened to randomly see that they posted an open call for it. So
yeah, damn. All right, well, I'm gonna have to keep a lookout for that because I like to be a part of those things, especially for like shit that's more up that alley, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. That's a
But
lot of it too. There's like a lot of places that issue open calls like constantly, and if it doesn't show up in your newsfeed, you just like won't see it. So you got to
yeah,
keep up. You got to just keep looking, clicking on people's galleries, websites, or whatever every so often.
right, and be on top of that. But also, I mean, like you can like do like mailing lists, like emails and stuff like that. But that
Yeah,
can
I don't
get
think they
lost
do
too.
that.
Yeah. All right,
Some
man. Well, I
places
really
do.
appreciate, and I'm glad that you have some. Is it more than one piece in the Eclipse show?
Yeah, it's two.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I wanna check it out. So I'm gonna be in touch with you and see if we can meet up.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Have a good night, sir. Thank
Good
you so
night.
much.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Cheers.
Later.
All right, everybody. That was awesome, Paul Barton. Everybody, that shit was fun. His work is incredible. So I usually at the end of the show like to mention who the next guest is. So next month we're going to be talking to right around the Halloween season, right around the fucking week of Halloween. We're going to be talking to Elle Taylor, Smelly L. We're going to fucking get into it. We're going to talk about all of her incredible work. So please tune back in. If you liked this, please share with other people. Tell them what I'm doing. Like, subscribe, all those things. Set reminders. I really do appreciate it. I'm looking to do a lot more with this over time. I now have Fridays out of my day job schedule, and part of the reason being I'm looking to pursue more with this project. So thank you again for being a part of this, interacting. And if you haven't been present with us in the live sense, hope you have enjoyed this, watching it after. So thank you again. And yeah, stay on the lookout for the next episode and the announcements that are going to be revolving around this whole thing that I'm doing. Forum Terror fucking Fridays, man. All right. Signing off. Cheers, guys.